The Mid-Ohio Sports Course in Lexington, Ohio plays round to the latest of the 2012 iRacing World Tour. We'll be racing here today for 42 laps around this beautiful 2.25 mile circuit, 100 miles, and joining me in the booth for this broadcast today, Mr. Brad Sanford and Mr. Dan Blake. Very good evening to both of you.
Good evening, Will.
Hey Will, how are you guys doing this evening? Dan, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
As I said, we're racing for 42 laps today in the Indycars. This is the second of the World Tour events, which will be taking place in the Indycars, of course, after the third annual iRacing Indy 500 back on Memorial Day weekend. And Brad, I'm going to come to you first. And, both you and I, we're big IndyCar fans, and we race this car regularly. Mid-Ohio is a very, very difficult racetrack. Tight, twisty turns, and these drivers have got to be on it from the second the green flag flies.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is a track that you have to be attacking constantly with so many braking zones, and with all the twists and turns coming in the later half of the track, it's an extremely interesting race tonight, I believe.
And practice sessions just going on at the moment. These guys have got about 8 to 9 minutes left of practice, in fact just a little bit less than that, and we have got ourselves 33 drivers who will be taking part in this race. Some very, very big names, drivers like Mika Nasi, Tapani Laniotto, Rukia Tolo. In fact, I believe he's the only pro driver in this field as well, so some big competition. And adding to that, we've got ourselves a nice little surprise for everyone. This guy is the official junior test driver for the latest Formula 1 team. He has successes in the German Formula 3 Championship, also in the GP3 Championship, and the Renault World Series. Mr. Richie Stanaway, hello and welcome to GlacierTV.
Hey there, how's it going?
Not too bad. And this Mid-Ohio sports car course is very, very tight and technical. First of all, how do you think this race is going to pan out? Because overtaking can be difficult here.
Yeah, it's a very technical little circuit and probably going to be very hard to overtake. So I think most of the overtaking will probably be due to strategy or something like that. But you never know; it's still possible to overtake. So I guess we'll have to see how it goes.
And being an open wheel driver yourself, you're obviously used to the type of racing that this race will, lend itself to. But how similar is, simulated open wheel racing in the Dallara Indycars or the Star Mazdas or the Formula One car? How does it translate to what you experience in real life?
I think it's quite similar in my opinion. That's why I use it quite a lot for training. For instance, the Star Mazda is very similar to a GP3 car. I think the IndyCar is actually not too different to, say, a World Series or something like that. But the one thing you do miss out on is the G-forces and sort of that sort of side of things that you obviously don't get through a sim. But apart from that, it's quite similar, and that's why I quite enjoy using it for training.
Richie, some people watching this may not know, but you had a big crash at Spa. How is your recovery coming from that?
Recovery's going quite well. I'm still in a back race at the moment, so I'm not able to use my proper sim cockpit, so I'm sort of in an upright position just with like a wheel on the desk, which isn't ideal. But yeah, I mean, recovery's coming quite well, so hopefully in about another 4 or 5 weeks I should be able to get back into training and hopefully do some more World Series races in September.
What role is iRacing playing in your recovery? Obviously it's helping you keep sharp while you're away, but how much of an impact is iRacing making on your recovery racing wise?
It's quite good because I'm able to stay sharp on iRacing. But even during the racing season, even if I didn't have the injury, I'd still be on it quite a lot. So yeah, I mean, iRacing is great just for staying sharp and yeah, just staying in the loop of things and staying in that groove that you need to be in, especially during race season, and especially for me at the moment because I'm not able to race, obviously in the races, so I'm sort of restricted just to iRacing, but it's good to stay in the groove.
Finally, do you know many other drivers who are on iRacing that maybe we won't know about?
Sort of the only other real life driver that I drive with quite a bit on here is Shane van Gisbergen from the V8 Supercars, but you might be familiar with him already. But you know, there is a few real drivers floating around, but yeah, I mean, it's great for training.
Good luck for the race today.
Thank you. Just one last thing I'd like to say. I'd just like to say thanks to the support from ATR and Darren and Sean from Inside Sim Racing for supporting me for this race.
No worries, Richie, and we'll hopefully talk to you at the end of the race as well.
All right, thanks, guys.
Good luck.
Good luck, Richie.
And not only that, we've got ourselves a little bit of treat for the fans as well. We've got ourselves just a couple of free iRacing certificates. You can win yourself $5. Easiest way to do that is go onto Twitter and use the hashtag IROhio. You'll see it in the top right hand corner of your screen, the hashtag IROhio. And we just want to know your thoughts of the race. And the best comments, or the comments that make us laugh the most, will win yourself a nice little $5 gift certificate. It's not much, but hey, you know, you can use it for posted sessions or Brad purchasing one of the most versatile cars in the entirety of the iRacing service. And once again, Brad doesn't realise that I'm even talking to him.
Either that or with the Zolder track being available for pre-order, it could be a nice little donation towards Zolder.
Oh yeah, really looking forward to Solder, which will be coming out hopefully very, very soon. You see the cars are still circulating on the racetrack. We've got ourselves some nice groups of cars running at the moment. Leading the times in the warm-up session is Mikko Nassi with a time of 1 minute 9.698, and Rico is a full 3/10 of a second behind him. So maybe Rico's trying out a little bit of strategy here, just seeing how those tyres are working over different fuel loads. This is one of the things which has become really interesting the past couple of days. The fuel consumption in the car, it's been completely changed with some changes to the regulations and changes to the way the car works. And what that means is this race has gone from pretty much being a fuel saving race, you know, if you could save yourself a lap and a half of fuel, you can make it on one tank of gas. So now these drivers are going to have to pit, and it'll be interesting to see how that will work. Drivers might take 15 gallons, 17 gallons, they might fill their car up all the way to the brim at the start, and there's so many different options available. But the biggest thing, guys, is going to have to be tyre management, because these tyres do fall off, and once you do, especially in some of the twisty sections of the track, you're going to have to be careful. So we're going to run through your starting grid here for the iRacing Mid-Ohio Indy 100. Lining up on row number 1, Mikko Nassi with a qualifying time of 1 minute 8.699. Riku Alatolo will line up alongside him, just 16 one-thousandths of a second behind, lining up in the second position. Richie Stanley, we just talked to him, will line up in third, with Krasmir and Pranitsky in fourth position. Marius Thomas will line up in the fifth spot, with Jake Donald starting alongside him in the sixth position. Jody Mills will line up in the seventh position, with Michael Dinkel in the eighth spot. Rupi Tequila will line up in ninth, with Michelle Mancusi lining up in the 10th position. And Dan Blake, take us through cars number 10 to 20.
Yeah, just gone through 10, but in 11th on the 6th row we have Alejandro Munoz. Alongside him is Tapani Ninaluta. 13th is Ivan Basso. 14th we have Kevin Parrish. 15th is Pasi Voltanen. 16th James Swimbanks. 17th is Paul Richards. 18th Ivan Soul. 19th Michael Helen, and 20th on the outside of the 10th row is Liam Williams, as the cars are on the pace lap now.
Yeah, you see the cars there just coming through turn number 1. In the 21st position will be Jarno Regener, in the number 13 machine Gary Balkenhagen. Very big driver in the Oval Series will line up in the 22nd position. Paul Nelson and Harry Turner will line up in row number 12. Ivan Rudko and Tom Jones will line up in row 13. And then 27th will be Mitchell Muyala and David Ratcliffe in the 28th position. Jeremy Poole in the 29th spot, with Nick Brennan in 30th. Tim Mellon in 31st. Harold Stradler in 32nd, and Ryan Littlemore will line up your field in the 33rd and final position. And guys, one of the key things here is that, unlike in normal races, the field will be starting the race here at the start-finish line. You see very often in IndyCar races and in sports car races, they'll start the cars in the back straight away, just because it's a little bit safer for these drivers. So the cars toward the mid-pack to the rear of the field, they're going to be coming through turn number 12, the carousel, and turn 13 when the green flag comes out, and that's going to make for some very, very scary moments for some of these drivers.
Indeed, it could be quite interesting to watch that as they come round to start the race. Hopefully there won't be too many incidents, but you never know, especially with that, as you said about the start, we could see a bit of a drama on that first few seconds of the race.
Cars a little bit spread out there as they come through the China Beach, turn 4, 5 and 6 down into the S's now, turn 6, 7 and 8, and these cars will just want to be giving each other a little bit of room. You know, this racetrack pretty much is one lane wide at certain points of the track, and passing can be difficult here. We've already talked about that. You've got a very nice opportunity here coming out of turn number 9 through Thunder Valley, that quick right flick before you come into turn number 11 down into 12 from carousel. You'll see the pace car now making that move through turn number 11, and you just see how the track just falls away to uphill, and then it'll just settle down coming into turn number 12, one of the most difficult braking zones on the racetrack. The pace car now makes a turn down pit road, and immediately Miko Nassi comes out of turn number 13, and the iRacing Mid-Ohio 100 is already green. And we got a big crash down the front straight. 4, 5 cars involved. Big crash, and a number of drivers struggling to get through turn number 1. And that looks as though that started all the way down at the start-finish line, guys. And I've got a feeling it was Alexander Muros and Stefano Laliotto coming down the start-finish line. Laliotto was looking down to the right-hand side, and ahead of him, Alejandro Myers just came across him, speared him off the track into the wall, and as both cars came back out onto the track, he had a secondary impact, and I think there's at least 5 cars involved there.
What were we saying before the race, Will? We were saying that could be a potential trouble spot, and it has proven to be. Quite a few cars involved there, and there were some secondary impacts as well, where cars were trying to pull away and ended up hitting other cars as well, so that's probably taken out maybe a good 6-7 cars, which is unfortunate, but it was predicted beforehand.
Ivan Basso and Kevin Parrish were also involved in that melee. They had themselves a secondary impact. And behind it, you saw just drivers struggling to get through there. James Swinback, very, very lucky to get involved in that. And the fact that the start-finish line is so, narrow, the track edge is a bit like Road America, meant that these drivers are very lucky to get through there. You see out front, Miko Nassi is leading Rico Alatolo by about 8 tenths of a second as they come through the keyhole, turn them dude, back down the long back straightaway through turn number 3. It's not really a turn, it's more like a kink before that big braking zone for turn number 4. A little bit further back, you've got yourself a little bit of separation, which is caused a bit by that impact at the start-finish line. And it looks like the field is already pretty spread out, Brad.
Yes, Will, it is. In fact, I'm keeping an eye on Richie Stanaway right now, who went off track actually in corners 10 and 11, and it's dropped him down to 9th position at the moment after starting 3rd.
So Stanaway.
Oh, pardon. Also, I noticed Richie Stanaway's got some damage to his car as well on the front right, as he would see it. So he's got some damage to nurse as well at the moment. It's not the start that the professional driver from the Renault World Series, the German Formula 3 champion, would probably wanted to have at the start of this race.
Yeah, and I mean, on the road courses, damage is less costly than on the ovals. I mean, on the ovals, these cars are trimmed out to be very, very specific. You can get away with it, a little bit of change of driving here on the roadside, but still, that car is going to be a handful to drive. And see there, Stanaway is already 9 seconds behind the race lead. Rico actually in the second position dropped another 10th of a second that last time back, but the 2 leaders have pulled out a 3-second gap to Chris Mir in the number 2 car, who's currently sat in the 3rd position, and he's been closed down now by Marius Thomas, sat in the 4th position in that number 7 machine. And the car's currently working through lap number 3. We're going to try and get ourselves a replay of the start there. And it really was that mid-pack that we were talking about, as Stefano Laliotto is your first retirement from the race. after that moment, there's no way he's going to get that car back onto the racetrack, to be perfectly honest there. And huge disappointment for him. I know he was looking forward to a great race here today. We'll very quickly run through your top 10. It is Miko Nassi in the number 1 machine leading the way. The gap between himself and Enrico Anatolios has come past the line to put 3 laps in the book. Back down now to less than 9 tenths of a second. Kreshmir Pruskinski is in the 3rd position. Marius Thomas in 4th. Jake Donald in 5th. Jody Mills in 6th. Michael Dinkel in 7th. Ropi Tequila in 8th. Richie Stanaway in 9th. And Michelle Mancusi in the 10th position. And you see there the replay is coming up on your screen now. And it just looks, guys, that there's nothing that Lenny Otto could do because the car just came right across him. And as soon as he got to the grass, he was always going to head right towards that wall. And you see there just how difficult some of these drivers, they're on the brakes, and that's what's lost, that really separated this field out here. Some of the drivers are able to weave through it pretty easily, but as the cars came back onto the track after spearing into that right-hand side retaining wall, really did make it very difficult for some of these drivers to keep some form of momentum. And what that's meant is that, you know, you've got drivers in the middle of the pack who's already half a second now behind the race, half a minute behind the race lead, as Miko Nassi puts a 5th, working out lap number 5, so 4 laps in the book for him. And for some of these drivers now, after that difficult start, is it going to be a case now just riding out to pit stop, perhaps taking a different strategy option, seeing if they can get themselves in some clean air and do some hot lapping?
Maybe, because they've got to find some time, but also I've been noticing as the cars have been coming through turn 1, there's a lot of commitment and a lot of dust being kicked off as they put a couple of wheels off onto the grass. So turn 1 is definitely an area where they're putting in full commitment and pushing it to the absolute limit.
Yeah, I've driven many laps around this racetrack, and turn number 1 is always so scary. As you're currently having a look at Ruby Tequila on your screen, this is the battle for 6th, 7th and 8th on the racetrack. That is Michael Dinkel, Rupi and Richard Stanaway in the number 10 machine. And as they come through the China Bends and then the Essex, you know, you've really got to be careful there because it is single file. And even though if you can gain some momentum, you've got to target that to perhaps try and make a move through turn 8 into 9, or you're going to have to sit behind them all the way down into turn number 12.
Yeah, as we saw them go through the Sons of Valley there, but the car of Dinkel maybe made him slightly bit wide there, but there's nothing that Tequila could do about it. As you said, he's stuck behind him now as they come across the start-finish line and into turn 1, but Tequila is certainly going to be starting to put the pressure on Dinkel to try and get to that 6th place and catch up with Jake Donald, who's 4 seconds up the road from this battle.
And an interesting thing there with Dinkel, he was using that curve down in turn number 1 that separates pit exit from the actual racetrack. He was using that curve just to let that car turn a little bit more. You saw him get a little bit loose over it, but what you can do is know how to use it effectively. You can just make the car a little bit looser, and then you can get a higher average speed through that corner. And seeing as that leads down into the keyhole, one of the biggest passing zones on this racetrack today, not a bad pull there by Dinkel, the number 23 machine.
No, it's showing a bit of intelligence, and along with the speed, you've got to have that little bit of intelligence and initiative amongst you, because sometimes there is situations where you might just get an extra bit of performance or a little bit of time, and it's good, very good from Dinkel there that he's able to utilise that.
Ivan Sol and Liam Williams are having a battle for 12th and 13th on the racetrack, and Williams looks like he can always close about half a second behind Ivan Sol, but then it just seems like he gets into that dirty air and drops back, and Sol also starting to put pressure now on James Swingbanks in the number 31 machine. Swingbanks, the last time we were having a World Tour event, won the rookie Indianapolis 500, so that young Australian's got himself some big race situations already under his belt, and on the road course here at Mid-Ohio, he's still looking pretty handy.
He is, and also another driver is looking quite handy at the moment is the number 16 of Jody Mills. We were talking earlier about the battle between Dinkel, Turklo and Stanaway, and Mills is slowly but surely catching up to the back of Stanaway, and that could be a 4-way battle in the very near future.
And I tell you what, Stanaway, even though he's got some huge damage to that number 10 machine, you can see it on your screen. Try and get a view of it from the rear of Tequila's car. It is to the right front end plate of the front wing, and even though he's got some damage to that, he's still setting lap time in the 1:11 consistently, and that means that he can hold his own, you know, in that 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th battle. So I think that he could be a driver if he uses strategy to his advantage, comes down perhaps a little bit earlier, gets himself a new front wing once the pit window opens. You could expect to see some surprises for him later on in this race.
And there is that rear view we were talking about. As you can see, Stanaway's car's got very visible damage. The wing is bent down, and that is affecting him. It's not just cosmetic. The damage does actually affect the cars, and I think he'll be quite happy when he can replace that in the pit stop.
Yeah, of course, though, that there are still some things that he can do to that car. Right now, that car will be feeling very tight for the centre of the corners. So he is still able to use the anti-roll bars. He's got one to the front and the rear, so if he is to perhaps lower the front anti-roll bar, or perhaps increase the rear anti-roll bar to his race car, that will help to loosen the car up just a little bit. And these drivers, you know, they have allowances in their car for situations like that, which, you know, if they need to, they can use it. And again, once he comes down pit road, I expect him to get himself a new front wing. I tell you what though, Riku Anatoly, he's got himself Mikko Nassi now a full 2.5 seconds ahead of him, as they're starting to work through some lap traffic here. A number of drivers have already gone one lap down. The last driver to do that was Michael Helen in the number 9 machine, running in the 28th spot. He's gone down a lap, as has Alejandro Moyers and Harry Turner and Johnny Villajayan, then David Ratcliffe as well.
That's where Alatoula's had a few problems going through the traffic. That's like Mikko Nazi has been able to negotiate it quicker, and on that last lap alone he gained over half a second on Alatoula. So I think the traffic, the way that these drivers go through traffic, is also going to be a factor on the race this evening.
Yeah, and some of these drivers, especially at the sharp end of the field, they would specifically have set their car up for a certain type of running. Perhaps Rico might have known that Miko would have pulled away from him if they were on a different strategy, and he would fall back into some clean air. Now, as he had to come off around some lap traffic, that would take the air away from the front of his car, and it would all of a sudden mean that he's having to drive that car a lot differently to how he'd be doing it normally. Managed to get through the lap traffic okay there. That was Michael Helen there that he just put a lap on. But bear that in mind later on in this race, and I think that also, being the first car on track, you know, it starts lapping cars, it's always the advantage, because you're the first person they see, and they always give you a little bit of extra leeway for the leaders that you see here. It's Tequila there, big battle on the racetrack there. This is in the battle for the 6th position, so close there. You'll have another look as they come down into turn 4. This is the China Beach corners, but Tequila is looking racy in that number 3 machine.
Richie Stanaway's in it as well. I think the damage may become too much. He's just fixed the wing, I think, he's back out, but Richie Stanaway has eventually said that enough is enough, and he's come in for a pit stop. And also, there's a big moment for Dinkle where Basso went off just in front of him, so his heart would have been in his mouth there, but Stanaway in the pits as well.
So, the pit window, I mean, that's just open. He will still have to save himself perhaps half that with fuel, as is often the case in Indycar races. But Stanaway now back out onto the racetrack in that number 10 machine. Currently way down the field now. But I think he's got himself a little bit of clean air, which will be useful because David Ratcliffe is the nearest car to him on the racetrack. In fact, we've just got very big sideways there. But it'll be interesting. We'll keep an eye on the lap times of Richie Stanaway. He came out of pit road with 9 laps complete. Miko Nassi now is just working on his 11th lap, coming down into the keyhole once again. Sorry, to turn number 3 even. He's now coming down into China Beach, turn number 4. That right 90-degree flick, and then the track just falls away as they flick it to the left into turn number 5, and then right once again into turn 6 for the start of the S's. But Massey is again behind traffic, and he's finding Kevin Parrish a lot more difficult to overtake.
Yeah, also Richie Stanaway came out in 18th place. He came up behind the, and there's a car that spun off.
Yeah, Tom Jones in the number 32 machine. He is trying to, he's going to have to let all that traffic go past, and that is really going to hurt him. He was already 3 laps down, and I think now that this could almost be the end of the race for Jones, because that engine's going to start overheating before too long. And you see he's just sat there in the gravel trap, cannot find a way to get back on track, and you've got to be so careful when you rejoin, especially on a tight track like this, when the apex is always so blind.
Tom Jones will be singing the blues after that one, you got to think. But Yeah, I see what you mean. He's let a load of cars past, and he's already 4 laps down, so it's been a bit of a race to forget for Tom Jones.
Yeah, and I'd expect him to come down pit road anytime soon. He stays out, but these tyres really are going to be shot to pieces now. Not only was he spinning it into the gravel, but also there he was just sat there running on the grass for a good 400 meters. So that really would affect the grip to his race tyres. And I tell you what, Rico's caught up a little bit. He's caught about just over half a second on the previous couple of laps as they were working through that bit of traffic. And Miko and Riku are the only 2 drivers to be lapping sub 1 minute 11.2. In fact, last time Miko did a 1 minute 10.635. That's Miko Nati in the number 1 machine. And then the number 5 car, who is being held up now a little bit by Kevin Parrish as they come out of the final corner. Kevin Parrish now just moving to left-hand side to let Rico Alatolo go past into turn number 1. Rico's last lap was a 1 minute 10.355.
The 26 of Misha Muller's been involved in an accident at China Bend, and I think his race may be over. I've been told that there was China Bend, and also he, I think in frustration, hit the wall as well, and his car is very, very benched. That's Misha Muller down the field.
Yeah, I'm just having a look back here. His car was all over the place. In fact, it was with the number 27 machine of David Ratcliffe. It's a weird moment. Ratcliffe there, I really can't say he's to blame because he came through turn number 4 and 5, and it just looked as though that Michelle Miller was just so far off the pace, and Ratcliffe was just thought, okay, I can turn in now, and all of a sudden, Mitchell just put the brakes on almost.
Tom Jones, I think, has finally called it a day for this race. I think that's another retirement, Tom Jones. But the lead has actually come down. Riku Alatulu has got it down to 1.7, and he's actually seems to be closing in now on Miko Nasi. Maybe he was just conserving his tyres and that a bit earlier on because Alatulu's catching up, but they're coming up to traffic now.
And Sol is up now into the top 10 in that number 22 machine. That is Ivan Sol. He's made the move, I believe, on James Swinbanks. It must be the case. But yes, indeed, he has made the move on James Swinbanks. In fact, now he's got Liam Williams all over his rear wing there. The Australian driver driving in the number 31 machine is going to have Williams all over the rear of them as they come through turn number 1. And we've got ourselves, it was a nice pass I believe down into turn number 4, one of the big braking zones onto the racetrack. And of all the places you can pass on this track, you know, turn 2 is the obvious one, but turn 4, if you can step the car off, especially using the draft, it is a good place to try and overtake.
I wonder if Williams will try and do it after seeing Sol do it successfully as they come down now down the back straight.
Too far back.
Yeah, he's too far back, but
you look like you saw that he was just over that car. So almost it looks like he deliberately running himself a little bit wide, so that in the fact that if Swinbank made a mistake in the entry to turn 5, you could dive down underneath him. So that's some good aggressive driving there, just trying to put off the 31 machine ahead of him. But that battle between Miko Nati and Ricky Alatolo is back up now to 2 seconds. And I remember what you were just saying about saving the tyres. I remember back when Rico first started getting into these open wheel cars, we had a lot of training from the likes of Marco Vitinen and Alessi Loma. And these drivers always like to do the long strategy. So put as much fuel on the car as possible and then keep as many options open available to you. And perhaps that's what Rico's doing here today. Is Williams there getting very wide through the keyhole, and that means that he's going to have to really push now from the rest of the lap to try and gain some time. But I think Rico is, just as you say, saving his tyres so that when Miko comes down pit lane, Alatolo could just push and try and get that gap down in the space of the 2-3 lap difference.
On this lap he's had a bit of lost a few tenths. He caught Tim Miller at the wrong place and it took him a bit longer I think than he wanted to get past, but also Miku Nazi's in a lot of traffic now, so it'll be interesting to see what happens in this little exchange. He's got 2 cars in front of him, one being the 30 of Harry Tuunanen, and he's moved over to let Nazi through. Then there's another car in front of him which I believe is the 30, I'm not sure, but he's got another car in front of him. I can't see the number, but He's done well to go past the first car, but we'll see what happens now with the second one. This is number 13, I believe.
Yes, it is indeed. And Brad, I'll come back to you momentarily. I know you've fallen asleep over there, but when it comes to IndyCar racing on the roadside, you know, you think about the likes of Nico Brandt and Mark Fangman, but in the last couple of seasons, Miko Nassi really has just come into the form of his own, being one of the dominant cars in the roadside of the IndyCar series.
I think he may have fallen asleep himself. Well, I think he has. I think he's gone.
Yeah, we'll try and get back to Brad in a little bit. I think he must have fallen asleep. Meanwhile, we are working here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car course, the iRacing Indy Grand Prix of Mid-Ohio, the Mid-Ohio 100, working lap number 17 with Miko Nassi as your race leader, Riku Alatolo in the second position in the number 5 car, with Kresmir Kalinski in the third position in the number 2 machine. And I believe, Brad, yes, I'm sure you must have heard the previous question, but I'll ask you again. When it comes to the likes of road racing here in the iRacing IndyCar series, you know, you think about drivers like Nico Brandt, Mark Fangman, who's established himself over a long period of time, but Miko Nassi really has made a big name for himself in the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, he really has. Sorry about that. I was having a communication problem down here on pit road, but Miko Nassi has really put himself out there and has really impressed a lot of people right now. He has really been one of the guys that people aim to strive to beat right now.
In some ways, a little bit disappointing. This race, you know, very late in the night for the Europeans. The likes of Fangman and Brandt aren't able to take part. And say we've had a great battle between themselves and Rico and Miko if you know, those guys were able to show up here today.
Definitely. It is a shame someone like Nico Brandt's not here. He's always great to watch on any road course in a Dallara.
And I'm just having a look back at that battle once again between Graham Finbanks and Liam Williams. And it looks as though Williams is falling back about a second behind Twinbank. So Williams is getting a little bit rugged in that number 19 Patron machine there as we come down to put another lap in the books. But this is a fact, you know. Everywhere from Michael Dinkel through to about passing Felton in the 15th position, separated by less than 20 seconds on the racetrack. So if you go off, you know, into one of these large travel tracks, you are going to lose yourself a bucket full of positions. And when it comes to Mid-Ohio, you know, that is easier said than done, keeping the car on the black shiny stuff.
Speaking of Passy Goldson, he's under real pressure here from Richie Stanaway. He's absolutely hounding him as they come down the straight now into turn number 3. Also, there's a couple of other battles going on. For 4th place, Marius Thomas and Jake Donald are in close combat as Stanaway goes down the inside of turn 4 and he completes the move. That's a very, very good move. It's a move we've seen before. He drifts the back end out. He's really enjoying it now. He's got his damage fixed. So Richie Stanaway is now up to 15th place. And the next target for him is Paul Nelson, who's about a second in front of him. So Stanaway is certainly starting a bit of a fight back. He's now up to 15th and it will soon be 14th.
Ryan Littlemore comes out of pit lane there in the number 33 machine, bringing the car now back to the keyhole, and he's got himself Mikkel Helen. He's about a second behind him, but Mikkel's had himself a very difficult day. I have to say though, some really good respectful driving, with the exception of the race start and that moment we saw down in turn number 5 about 5 laps ago. Really respectful between these drivers.
Richie Stanaway is going to make that move I told you about earlier against Paul Nelson, and Paul Nelson almost sort of let him pass, I think, near enough. He pulled right over to one side, and on the run up into turn number 2, the keyhole, Richie Stanaway makes a new stick, and he's now up to 14th position.
Yeah, and I think that was the yellow helmet syndrome there. Nelson just saw the fact, you know, that Stanaway was coming in his rearview mirror. He heard the spotter saying who it was, like, yep, I'm not going to need a guy that blocks him too much on his charge back through the field. And Stanaway's last lap was a 1:11.383. Let's remember that there was some traffic involved in that. But his fastest lap, a 1:10.133. And when you compare that to the likes of Miko Nassi and Riku Alatolo, who race this car regularly, it's only about 0.3 of a second slower than them.
Speaking of Ricky Alatolo, he's right over the back of Miko Nassi now. He's got a gap down to 0.7 of a second, or just under 0.8, I beg your pardon. But it's starting to be a bit of a. Nassi's gone a bit wide there, coming out of towards front of the valley, and that's going to allow Alatola to come even closer. So we could have some fireworks at the front because Alatola has really started to catch up away from our attention, and he's right on the back of Nassi as they come down now to complete the lap.
Classic Alatola there. You know, just holding back a little bit at the start of the run, let Nassi do the pace dictating, and then in the middle part of this race, as we are approaching the halfway point, we will be halfway at the completion of this lap. Alatola is coming down now to put buckets load of pressure on Mikko Nassi. Mikko Nassi even in the battle for the race lead. The gap between them at the end of the last lap was less than 6/10 of a second. Alatola is looking a little bit there through turns number 1 and 2, but as they bring it back down through China Beach once again, this is where you'll see Alatola getting a little bit of time if he has indeed preserved those tyres a little bit more. In fact, it really does look as though he has, because look at him gain through turn number 4 and 5.
He's gaining very, very quickly, and also from 4th place, Marius Thomas has come into the pits. I noticed he had some front wing damage as well, so that's Marius Thomas who's come in from 4th place. He was having a bit of a battle with Jake Donald, but now he's in the pits.
And we'll get Brad to have a look at that, and he will report back to us in a couple of moments' time. But this battle for the race lead really hotting up now. And I've told you about how, you know, it is very difficult to overtake here at Mid-Ohio, but for Alatola now, we're coming up to that sequence of pit stops. Do you think that he's trying to put the pressure on Nassi now, trying to get him to make a mistake, or perhaps trying to get him to pit early? Because, you know, if he's putting so much pressure on him now, Nassi might just be like, screw this, I'm going to come down to pit road and hot lap by myself for a bit.
Ricky Alatola is certainly catching them up, and with that, maybe what he's thinking about, maybe the undercut. I don't know if that's got the same effect as it has on Formula 1, but if Ricky can get him to pit quicker and then put in a few blistering laps of his own, he could get him past him that way.
Well, the way these tyres work, I mean, it's the fact that you've got full fuel on one hand, but you've got fresh tyres on the other, so it kind of equals itself out a little bit. It's not as profoundly fuel here as compared to some of the other cars that you see on the iRacing service. Things like, you know, the Corvette and the Ford GT, where they are predominantly faster on their first lap out of the pitch. You see there, those drivers getting very, very close to the lap traffic as they came through turn number 7, and that was very, very, very close there. And I believe that was Tim Miller who hadn't even got a front wing there, bringing the car down to pit road, that 45 miles an hour. He is driving the number 29 machine. He's overshot his pit box as well, just by the look of it. And that was a close call there between the two lead drivers and Tim Miller.
Yes, Will, I will let you know with Tim Miller, that's the second time he's been on pit road in the last 3 laps. On lap 19, he was being overtaken by Marius Thomas and Jake Donald, and Marius Thomas got into the rear end of Tim Miller coming into turn 13, headed towards the start-finish line, spun all 3 cars around, Marius Thomas, Jake Donald, and Tim Miller.
Wow.
Thank you for that. I wonder what happened there with Marius when I saw that, but that's also allowed Jody Mills now to catch up to Root Tequila and Jake Donald. There's about, from 4th place down to 7th, there's about 4.2 seconds between them, so that battle's going to be hotting up quite nicely. It would be interesting to see what strategy calls they make to try and gain position through this.
So we're currently working on lap number 23 of 42 here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Course, and Rico Alatola comes down into pit lane, so he was the one with less fuel in that car. And he's coming down now to that 45 mile an hour regulation speed limit. And in fact, we're just going to see whether we can have a quick, very quick chat there with Rico. This is going to be the world's quickest interview. And Rico, very interesting first thing. You gained there on Mikko at the end of it. What's your plan for the second half of this race?
I'm not really sure. I just hit a bump on the back straight last lap, then I had a meatball sack, so I hit the pits a few laps earlier than I was supposed to, but hope my early pit stop allows me to undercut Mikko maybe, but I'm not too sure about that.
And you see that, we'll let you get back to the racing. Thank you very much for that. That is Rico Alatola, our in-race supporter for this race here today, and he hit a big bump there on the back straightaway, and that might damage his engine. And Brad, we've seen before, even on these road races, you know, they'll take themselves a couple of bumps, and from then on it's almost a ticking time bomb, because these cars, you know, they could then just, you know, the engine can just let go at any moment, And let's not forget, back at Indianapolis, just last
There's
week.
been an accident between Richie Stanaway and Jake Donald, I believe, coming in, and they've collided again. And Stanaway has hit another car as well, and Stanaway's on his rolled over. This is big
Wow.
crash there. Stanaway and Donald got together, and it's ended up with Richie Stanaway going over, and that is a dramatic crash for Stanaway.
Yeah, that is a big crash there for Stanaway, and it just looked just not the sort of thing you'd expect from him there. It was down. Yeah. It's a crazy maneuver, and it just looked as though that number 10 machine, it just looked all wrong for him. Of course, even Basso was involved in that as well. And that is going to be a huge disappointment there for Stanaway, who we talked at the start of the race. He'd had himself a great middle part of it, carving his way through the field. He was up into the 13th position, and that's just all come and done now.
Indeed it has, but the battle for Rico Alatolo is now over, going past the car of Kevin Parrish to put a lap on him, trying to get past him again, and Riku seems to be quite rapid after this pit stop, so after this damage may not have caused him much in the way of long term, but we'll have to see. But he seems to be quite rapid at the moment.
Yeah, that was just as I was saying before that moment with Stanaway. Let's not forget, guys, that he blew his engine up at the Brickyard weekend just last week in the Grand Am race, so he wouldn't be wanting for another engine failure in this car. And Brad, we have seen these cars, you know, they are normally, you know, workhorses. They very rarely blow up, but hitting these big bumps on some of these straightaways, you know, really does damage the undercarriage, and then from there it's down to the engine.
Yes, very true. I'm a little biased towards that with personal experience of blowing up 3 laps into a race at Phoenix earlier this year in a strength of field race. So a lot of it could be gearing and the bumps on the track, and just hit up one bump the wrong way and your motor can blow unexpectedly with no warning whatsoever.
So Mika Nassi has covered off Rico Alatolo, and he has come back out in front, and the gap looks as though, guys, it's grown by a little bit, by about almost up to about 2.5-3 seconds now.
I don't think it's that much. I think Rico Alatolo is still quite close between the two of them, but Richie Stanaway unfortunately has had to retire following that incident, which is no surprise. But I think you'll find the gap between Nazi and Alatolo is probably about 1.5 seconds, so Nazi's probably gained about 0.7 of a second. We're seeing now just how much the gap is. In fact, it's 1.4 seconds. So
1.4.
So definitely Nazi's gained a few tenths, but that's all it is. And Alatolo's decision, well, he was forced to make that early pit stop, which is good insight from him, because we didn't know that. But that hasn't cost him too much. If it's costing less than a second, it seems.
And Jody Mills there off the racetrack in the number 16 machine, and I believe there was a coming together with. That was a very slow car on the left-hand side. It's the number 31 machine of James Swinbanks there, down into China Beach. Swinbanks there is going to have himself some huge rear suspension damage, and the China Beach complex, guys, catches out another 2 victims. I'm going to look at Swinbanks. He's got himself damage to his front wing. He'll also have himself a little bit damage to the rear of his car. And indeed, James Swinbanks has pulled it up to the side of the racetrack, and the rookie winner of the Indianapolis 500 is out of the race. And guys, we're having ourselves a very high attrition rate here today. We've only 15 cars still on the lead lap. We've got ourselves 5 cars 1 lap down, and a good number of retirements already.
Very true, Will. In fact, we're down to 13 cars on the lead lap, and 13th place is about 9-10 seconds away from being lapped himself.
Yeah, and that is Liam Williams there in the number 19 machine, and we've got ourselves a really good battle now with Jake Donald closing down Pasi Veltonen. This is the battle for the 11th position on the racetrack, and Veltonen, I believe, has gotten around Donald. In fact, yes, he has got himself around Donald. So Veltonen moved him up into the 10th spot as they're coming now down into turn number 12. Yes, into turn number 12, and Veltonen comes down into pit road. So just have a look at the commitment there by Veltonen as they came in. Very difficult pit entry. He's slowed it down to 45 miles an hour. He'll be getting himself 4 fresh tyres and topping up with Sunoco race gas. At the same time, you see yourself Swinbanks there, back down on pit road. Paul Richard makes a pit stop there from the 6th position. He's just coming back out on track as well. You have to hold it inside the curve there through turn number 1. And Nico Nassi looks like he's going to have himself some more traffic to deal with. And in fact, guys, I think he just almost lost that car a minute ago.
He's definitely pushing because the car of Ricky Atulu is one that's not going away. They're sticking right with him, and the pressure might start to be telling from Nico Nassi, but Ricky Atulu is definitely keeping up the pressure, and it's only good for this race because it means that he's got no chance to let off and lose concentration.
Yeah, so I'm just having a look through the stats as well, because these two haven't really clashed too much on a head-to-head moment. But as I say, Miko really is one of the stars of the IndyCar on the roadside at the moment. You can always compare him to like Will Power at the minute. Doesn't race very much in the ovals, but really on the road courses is amazing at the moment. And but at the same time, it's Kreshma Trininsky who's leading the way in this season's standings in the IndyCar roadside, as Miko there looks like he's a little bit slow there down the front straightaway. I'm not sure if there was anything in particular there, as Gary Bockenhagen there, he is another driver to fall victim to this racetrack. He is now down pit road getting some repairs to his race car, and guys, the very tight racetracks with some very small runoff areas is catching a lot of these drivers out, and Bockenhagen, Brad, is not a driver who you'd expect him to see in the wall.
No, not at all. Borkenhagen actually got a little loose coming off turn 13 and overcorrected and really couldn't do anything but put it on the inside of the pit wall.
So a David Coulthard-esque moment there for you history buffs, very similar to David Coulthard's moment from the 1995 Australian Grand Prix happened to Gary Bockenhagen. Out front, the battle is back on. Rico Nassi, the gap between himself and Rico Alatolo is less than 1 second now. And I tell you what, Nassi got held up just a little bit there, coming through the final couple of corners by some lap traffic, and the gap is now down to 9/10 of a second. That driver did come down towards pit road, so Rico Alatolo will not have to deal with that traffic himself, but the charge is on from that number 5 machine. And simple question is, we're actually this on Twitter, use the hashtag IROhio, and don't forget you can win yourself $5 of iRacing credits if you give ourselves a very funny or interesting comment. Can Alatolo beat Rico Nassi?
Alatolo also had a bit of problems with traffic the last lap as they came out of turn 2 and 3 out the straight. He caught the number 6 car, Paul Richards, in 11th place in a rather bad spot. But now that leaves there's only 10 cars left on the lead lap. These two, in fact, Liam Williams' intent has been lapped himself. So the glass car, which is on the lead lap, is Jake Donald in 9th place. So Nasu and Alatolo are really showing their dominance on the field. The fact that they're up to single digits for lapping cars.
And as this race will develop, I think lap traffic could be the deciding factor, boys. I think that will bring Alatolo closer and closer to Rico Nassi, and it'll get to the point that they can both breeze past them in one swoop maneuver. So I don't know, will Alatolo have the balls really to dive down the inside? I'm not sure if he will, but he's getting very, very close in that second position right now.
Roop Tequila has also put himself up into 4th place. He was running mid 5th, 6th, 7th around that area, but he's so far managed to put himself up into 4th place. I'm not sure if he's pitted or not. I assume he has pitted. No, he's at 5th place, but Roop Tequila up into the top 5.
And we have got ourselves at the line. 10 laps left to go here at the Mid-Ohio Sportscar course. And you see that Rico Nassi really is powering through now as he comes through into the S's once again. The gap was back up to just over 1 second the last time by. And Rico Nassi and Rico Alatolo are doing a superb performance at driving these Dallara IRL 05 IndyCars. And for all of you drivers who have never driven the IndyCar before, I have to say, as an IndyCar fan, it is one of the most, in fact, it is the most versatile car on the entirety of the iRacing service. You can drive it On the road courses, it's got so much grip, but it's so difficult to control. And then you get onto the oval, Brad, and you can be racing up to 235 miles an hour at a track like Michigan.
Yes, the IndyCar is a great car to drive. I love driving it on ovals, and I'm trying to learn how to drive it on these road courses.
Swinbanks there, down in the 17th position. His difficult days continue. He just loses it there at the carousel. Turn number 12. So that number 31 machine, he did get himself back onto the racetrack, but he's still got himself some suspension damage to the right rear by the look of it, and he's struggling just to bring that car home now. And we're just having a look at Michael Finkel there in the number 23 machine momentarily, driving that Suarez machine, and I don't know, it looks like he is catching Marius Thomas there quite rapidly as they come through the keyhole. That number 7 machine, Marius Thomas, his last lap, you see a car there going off. That was Alejandro Moyes, who was 2 laps down. That always puts the drivers' hearts in their mouths. But Marius Thomas's last lap was a 1 minute 10.909. Dinkel's last lap, sorry, was a 1 minute 29.2, so Dinkel's having a lot of trouble here.
Thomas went past him on the last lap. I think he may have made a mistake, and another driver who a couple of laps ago may have had a moment was Ricky, because the gap went up by nearly 9 tenths. It was 1 second, and it then went up to 1.89, so maybe Ricky had a slight moment as well, but on the last lap he's brought the gap down to 1.7, so no damage was done by that maybe mistake from Ricky.
So the only pro driver in the field, Rico Alatolo, is going to have to charge down Mikko Nassi, and he's going to have to drive like he's never driven before in that number 5 machine there. You see a little bit of a wiggle there coming down into turn number 6, but Alatolo really is pushing it to the absolute ragged edge now in that number 5 machine. The gap, by the way, from 2nd place to 3rd place is a whole 28 seconds. So if you compare that, these guys are putting out half a second a lap to everyone else on the field. Superb driving by the top 2 drivers here today. But let's not forget that right professional Kaminsky and Marius Thomas.
Ricky's gone off the track coming out of the last corner. He's made a mistake there, and he's just trying too hard, I think, maybe to try and catch up to Mikko. And he's made a definite mistake there. And as we look on board with him now, we're coming up now to the keyhole on turn number 2 and 3, but a mistake there from Ricky coming out the last corner. He just seems to come out a bit too hot, and he ends up going all over the grass into a bit of the gravel, but it hasn't cost him too much time again. But traffic is now coming up for Mikko Nassi as well, but yeah, Ricky's made another mistake.
We'll try and get ourselves a replay of that with Ricky. It was the final corner, it just looked inside that car. It's got a little bit aero tight on him, and he was just pushing a little bit too hard. I think he broke a little bit too late into the final corner. It's so easy to do here. Didn't get too much of a penalty, no damage to his race car, but he lost himself a full 7 tenths of a second that last lap. He's got lap traffic ahead of him. It's just breezing past it now from the valley down into turn number 11 again. Now it's very close to the wall as well. Sweeping through cars, left, right, and centre. He's got the number 22 machine, ahead of him. So coming down into the final corner once again. He will get himself a little bit of a slipstream as he dives now to the outside line. And we're currently working lap number 36 of 42 here, so into the dying stages. But the gap is now up to 2.7 seconds. And if Mikko can keep this in the racetrack, he's pretty much got this race in the bag.
But on that last lap, he had a real heart in the mouth moment coming through, coming around through the S's. He was 3 wide. One car went to the left, one car went to the right, and he really that was tense stuff there for Mikko Nassi. He must have felt like closing his eyes and hoping for the best.
He had a little bit of another moment there as he overtook the UNICEF car, Michel Mancusi. He tried to go down the right-hand side. At the same time, Michel was like, okay, I'll give you the left-hand side lane. And he had to get out the throttle correct. So he lost himself a couple more tenths there down to turn number 4. Ricardo Tolo's lap is all falling apart for him at the moment. In that number 5 machine, he's having to side his way through traffic. Meanwhile, Mikko Nassi has pretty much cleared everyone now. He's only got the number 33 machine ahead of him, who he's going to probably clear down this front straightaway. But apart from that, Mikko Nassi looks as though now he's got himself some clean air. And I have to say, though, this race is not over until it's over. We did a race on GlacierTV here a couple of months ago, and Nico Bright, who had dominated the race, just got caught out by a back marker spinning in turn number 1. And guys, I've talked about this all day long. This track is so narrow that it cannot be over until the car gets to twin checkers.
There was also a good piece of awareness there from Nick Brennan. He saw that Alatalo was coming up behind him and he pulled over to the left to make Riku's life a lot easier. So some of these back markers are showing some good awareness, but then there are some who are also maybe lacking a bit and not quite as aware as they should be. But credit there to Nick Brennan, he made the pass very easy for Riku.
I will say as well did Ryan Littlemore, who pulled over for Miko to go ahead and continue his run with Ivan Brasso next in his sights.
Yeah, so Miko Nasi now has got the gap up to 2.8 seconds. We've got ourselves 5 laps left to go at the line here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. You are watching the iRacing Mid-Ohio 100 here on GlacierTV. Ivan Sol is having himself a great battle for position there with the number 12 machine of Michelle Mancusi. And I think Mancusi lost a little bit of time as Ricky Alatolo was coming past him, but that has allowed Ivan Sol to get right up to the rear of him as they're all getting lapped. And Sol is really having a great race here on the 42 machine as we're coming to the dying stages of this 42 lap race.
And Souls also seems to be contending with a bit of damage himself. I think the right end plate on that car is slightly damaged, not to the extent that we saw with Richie Stanaway earlier, but there is a slight bit of damage, I think, to the right end plate on that 8th place car, Ivan Sol.
Yeah, and you saw that there through the keyhole, you know, a corner that you really do need aerodynamic grip. You saw the car, it turned in nicely, but then he just got understeered through the centre of the corner and he drifted all the way out to the outside lane as he came onto the exit of the corner. And this will be where he really struggled. Through the China Beach complex, 4, 5 and 6 and into the S's, and you see that he's dropped right off the rear now of Mancusi, and he will have to wait until they get through this sequence of corners down onto Find the Valley to try and gain some of that time back up, which indeed he does now. And that number 22 machine has just disappeared for us, but we'll try and get the cameras back on him. But Mancusi in the number 12 machine done a great job in that number 12 UNICEF machine, and however he's got himself a good 30 seconds gap between himself and Rupi Tequila ahead of him.
Yeah, and also Rupi Tequila is the last car in the lead lap and he's in 6th place. So Nazi and Alatolo have certainly not been very slow, they've been very, very, very quick. The fact that this is quite a high class field, this is a top split, and you got up to 6th place being lapped, it just shows the calibre of driver that this Mid-Ohio race has brought in tonight.
And guys, the curse of the commentators strikes again. Ivan Sol had to pull that car off the racetrack. He is done for the day. Issues for him in the number 22 machine. You see him there going all the way down the field. His day looks as though it is done. Disappointment there for Ivan Sol, who was really charging at the end of that race. It would have been great to see the battle between himself and Mancusi towards the end of this race. Out front, however, Mika Nasi comes past the line. 3 more laps left to go for him. Your top 5, Mika Nasi in the number 1 machine. Rico Alatolo is in 2nd position, 3 seconds out behind. It looks like he has given up for this race. He'll be happy with the 2nd position. Kreshmir Paninsky is in the 3rd spot. Marius Thomas in 4th. And Michael Dinkle rounding out your top 5. And I'll tell you what though, even though some of these drivers are lap down, you see that you've got yourself 2, 4, 7 cars 1 lap down. And you've got yourself another 7 cars 2 laps down, and another 6 cars 3 laps down. So these guys have still got the chance of battling for positions, even though they have been lapped. And you know, these guys at this point, once you go a lap down, it's all about the car. It's all about bringing that car just to the end of the race and getting whatever position you can get out of it. As Mika Nasi there has had to be very cautious through the China bends, and it's Harry Turner who is struggling on that race car. In fact, he always turns into Rico Anatola. He really is struggling. He's only doing about 60 miles an hour on the racetrack, and that number 30 machine there must have had a big moment. I'm trying to see what happened to him, but it just looks as though he's been struggling all the way from pit exit, and he's driving around at 55 miles an hour. Get it off the track, guy.
You were saying about Alatola giving up, but in the last 2 laps he's actually brought the gap down by 8 tenths. It was 3.6. The last lap saw him take away 6 tenths, and now on this last lap they just took now it's another 2 tenths. So I think it's too little too late for Riku Alatalo, but he's catching up slowly but surely, but I think time's going to be against him.
I'm sure the first racing stewards will be having a word there with Harry Tournament after this race. Driving around at 55 miles an hour at maximum. You know, the fact that these cars, you know, have it's single file for the most part of this racetrack, and you can't really get too far offline here. To have a car going that slow on the apex of corners is not something you're going to want to see. Miko Nassi, however, he's got himself now less than a lap and a half left to go here of the Indy Mid-Ohio 100 here on Glacier TV, through the carousel, through turn number 13, and as he'll come past, the white flag will be in hand. One more lap to go for Miko Nassi, and he's got himself, on the looks of it, pretty much a clean track ahead of him. He's not going to catch Howard Stadler on this lap, so he can now just cruise it to the line. Down the second straightaway now into turn number 2 for the keyhole. This 180-degree right-hand corner. He'll bring it now out of turn 2. Look at the apex there, just using the curve perfectly. Through down the back straightaway now. That it's not a corner, it's a kink there for turn number 3. This is where they do the starts for most of the races. They'll bring it down into turn number 4 into the China Bends. And guys, a dominant performance there by Miko Nassi. He didn't crack under pressure, and he's done himself a great job all race long.
Yeah, it's a very worthy, if he is to win this race still, it's a very worthy win for him, but as the curse of the commentator is, we don't want to say he's won it yet, because anything can still happen yet, but after it's a lights to flag, well, a welding start to flag victory. He's led every single lap, and it's been a dominant performance. Alatalo has been behind and pressuring him, but Nasty showed that he does not buckle to pressure, and as he comes round the final, he comes round to for the final time round the last corner, and there we are. The winner of the Mid-Ohio 100 is Miko Nassi. Second place is Riku Alatalo, and then we got a big 33-second gap to the third place car. Is currently Krasimir Prasnicki.
So Miko Nassi can add his name to the list of drivers who have won World Tour events here today. And if you're wondering why himself and Rico just decided to go side by side for a minute, obviously those drivers share a little bit here. And as we're on Olympic fortnight, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say the word Olympics here today, but on Olympic fortnight, of course, country pride is always a big thing, and the two Club Finland drivers ecstatic with their 1-2 performance. Christian Ipaninsky claims the third position here today. Marius Thomas in the number 7 machine comes home. He's just coming through the final couple of corners now, and he will come through the final corner claiming 4th place there for Club Diaz, and he'll come past the start finish line. A great job by him. We're just waiting now for the last couple of cars to come through. Michael Dinkel claims the 5th position. Rupertin Tequila comes home in the 6th spot. They're the only cars on the league lap at the end of this race. But guys, some great racing here today, and as always, it just shows the versatility and the difficulty of the IndyCar, because unlike the Formula 1 car, you know, the Williams that these drivers can race in, this IndyCar has downforce, yes, but it can get very, very squirrely once you get onto the power.
Definitely will, especially with the drivetrains these guys are using in here to be able to get down to have proper RPMs in your braking zones. It can just snap the rear end loose at any moment. It's a great race by Miko tonight.
And of course, talking about the Williams FW31, the next time that the World Tour will be making a start will of course be on the 1st of September for the iRacing Grand Prix of Spa-Francorchamps, 44 laps. The distance, the race that everyone always wants to win in Formula 1, one of the greatest races in the world in my opinion. That will be coming to you on the 1st of September, of course, here on Glacier TV, as will be the conclusion to the iRacing Skip Barber Racing School Premier Series next Wednesday. Like to very quickly run through your final race grid. We'll go through, first of all, Miko Nassi with a time of 49 minutes, 21.743 seconds, taking the twin checkers here today at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Rico Alatolo comes home in the 2nd position. Kreshmir Praninsky comes home in 3rd. Marius Thomas in 4th. Michael Dinkel in 5th. Ropi Tequila in the 6th position. And Marcel Mancini comes home in 7th. Liam Williams, a determined drive by him there in the 8th position. Paul Richards in 9th. Paul Nelson in 10th. Pasi Veltonen in 11th. Kevin Parrish in 12th. Ryan Littermore in 13th. Jarno Vagenin in 14th. James Swinbanks in the 15th spot. And you will see the rest of your field coming through on your screen momentarily. Meanwhile, 2nd place finisher, Riku Alatolo. You gave it your absolute all, especially in that 2nd stint there. But it looked just like you just didn't have enough for Miko Nassi ahead of you.
Yeah, anyone who races in the official Indycar series knows that Mikko is a very fast and very consistent driver. So I was a few tenths slower than him per lap. So my only really chance was taking it in the pits. But I hit a bump on the back straight a few laps before my scheduled pit stop, and I had to pit a few laps earlier. That caused me to come out behind some back markers who slowed me down. So I couldn't get past in the pits.
And I have to say, how was there any damage to the engine? Because quite often, when you do hit one of those big bumps in these IndyCars, it can damage the undertrain and then the engine. Did you suffer any loss of performance at all?
Well, the engineer said that I was leaking some fluid, but I didn't notice at the moment. But I decided to pit early just in case, there was some damage in the engine, so that the engine wouldn't explode. Took it safely.
And I mean, I'm going to have to ask you this. So how does driving these Dallara IRL 05 machines compare to the FW31 Williams that you drive on a more regular basis?
Well, the IndyCar is a lot, I would say, tougher to drive. It has a lot less, well, not a lot, but like a bit less aero. So it understeers a bit more. So either understeer a bit in the corner, or you put it in a bit of a slide to go fast, and it doesn't go on rails like the F1.
And after the disappointment of last week, when you blew up your engine, I'm sure second place will be what you were looking for here today. But in September, the next World Tour event, we're off to Spa, to your home car with the FW31, and you're going to look to go one better and get the top spot there?
Yeah, of course, that'd be really nice. I mean, second spot in this race was pretty much the best result I could get. There was really no chance against Mikko, but yeah, for Spa, I'm gonna put a bit of practice and see if I can go for the win.
Rico, still, you managed to actually beat Mikko in one scenario. You got the fastest lap of the race, 109.328, with 0.22 seconds faster than Mikko. How does that feel?
Yeah, I noticed that probably he stopped pushing a bit when I made the mistake on lap 34, went a bit wide in the last corner, so I lost 3 seconds there. So maybe he stopped pushing. I was still pushing a lot though, so probably why I got the fastest lap.
And as we always do when Finland dominates in the World Tour event, Joni Backman, it's time for you to ask a very quick question in Finnish.
Oh, that was a quite surprising one. Riku, miltä tuntuu olla maailman nopeimman kansan kuskeessa?
Joo, totta kai se hienolta tuntuu, en mä nyt. Nopeampi kuin
Dominoiva
Mikko.
suomalaisten kaksoisvoitto, niin varmaan ihan mahtavaa vaikka hävisikin.
Oli kyllä hieno nähdä, että minä ja Mikko päästiin kumpikin siellä 1 ja 2. Suomi vei taas senkin kerran.
And that's short and sweet.
Well, well done with your second place, Rico. I know that you're aiming for victory lane here today. Not quite there, but I'm sure, second place is going to still make you smile. And we'll see you in September.
Sure. Thank you, bye.
And guys, let's sum it up. Driver of the race. Brad?
Personally, you have to say Mikko Nasi. Just, to me, there's no question about it. He led from start to end and brought the car home in first place. Had a great race.
Dan?
I'd agree as well. I think Ganassi was a very dominant and assured performance. He seemed to, even though Riku Alatalo did try, Mikko just seemed to always have a little bit extra to stop him from coming by and being a real threat. I don't think Riku made a single maneuver or lunge in the whole race. I think Mikko just managed the gap well. When he had to, he made sure that Riku wasn't going to get past him.
And normally I disagree with everyone on this, but when you have a driver who leads every single lap of the race, the driver who, just misses out on setting the fastest lap, consistent, managed to navigate his way through traffic perfectly, and just managed to gap all race long, I'm going to have to agree with you. Mikko Nasi, sterling job by him, and this is why, right now, he is one of the dominant forces on the roadside of the IndyCars at the moment, and I really, really do expect big things for him once again this season. It is now, unfortunately, time for us to say goodnight. Don't forget that the more IndyCars will be coming to you this Sunday. The ISOWC IndyCar Championship will be coming to you from Suzuka this Sunday. That will start at 5 p.m. GMT. The Talk Big Racing Touring Car Championship next Tuesday. That'll be at 20 past 8 GMT. And then next Wednesday, it is the final round of the iRacing Skip Barber Racing School Premier Series. We have seen some great racing there all season, Dan. And coming into the final round, it really, really is going to be an absolutely stonking race at England's own Alton Park.
Yes, I think Alton Park's going to bring a great race with the... Alton Park is probably one of my favourite circuits in real life. It's got a lot of challenges, and I think it'll be perfectly complementing the Skip Barber final race of the season.
And just very quickly to run through the championship standings there, Christian Aranha, he pretty much needs to show up and finish in the top 10, and he'll guarantee himself in the championship. However, there is a very big battle going on for the second, third, and fourth position. Shanley Zalowski, Kurt Crum, Marco Corti, really close, separated by less than 38 points between them from second all the way through to fourth. So something that you'll really be looking forward to seeing. And of course, that will be with you on Glacier TV next Wednesday. For more information on that, go to iRacing.com or GlacierTV.com. Meanwhile, for myself, from Mr. Brad Sanford, Mr. Daniel Blake, and Yoni Backman, it is time to say goodnight, and we'll see you all on Sunday.